Welcome to Inspired Change, a new inspirational and motivational broadcast that strives to empower men in a positive way, designed to educate, empower, and inspire even the busiest individual on the go over that first cup of coffee. Please join me in welcoming Gunter, international psychologist, author, speaker, and producer.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Inspired Change. So in the last couple of episodes I've been talking essentially about what is it that we can do to achieve mental well-being. And so just as a quick refresher, I went through the importance of sleep, the importance of exercise, the importance of relaxation, and the importance of good nutrition, especially the idea of not getting excessively into alcohol and some of the negative effects of using drugs on top of that. So in this particular episode, I want to pick up on the whole idea of relaxation. I want to talk about that a little bit more in depth. I had some thoughts after our last session, our last podcast, and I thought, it'd be pretty worthwhile just getting stuck into that. Because in some ways, there are some misconceptions about what we're really talking about of relaxation. When I talk to a lot of the guys about what they do to relax, one of the first things they often say is they go to the gym or they run. Now, I might be a bit pedantic, but that to me is exercise. And the reason why I differentiate between the two is for this reason. Exercise fundamentally adrenalizes the body, okay? Relaxation is supposed to reduce the amount of adrenaline in the system. The other aspect to it is that, the nervous system consists of two parts, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And so when I'm exercising, I'm actually in an aroused state. That is, I'm in the sympathetic nervous system. And so, like, everything's pumping and, the mind and the body are really stimulated. One of the things that I want to achieve when I'm going into relaxation is that I want to take the foot off the accelerator of the sympathetic nervous system and apply the brake on the parasympathetic nervous system. So my level of arousal comes down. Okay, so my body uses less adrenaline. It's not accumulating cortisol in the system, and so the system goes into a state of relaxation as opposed to arousal. So for me, any form of exercise fundamentally is not really truly what I define as relaxation. So what is it that we do when we get into relaxation? Well, in my practice, when I deal with people who are overly stressed, distressed, in a state of anxiety, is I give them fundamentally 3 exercises to practice. Now, like all of us, some people are more diligent than others, but here's the message that I want to give people about those types of exercises. The more consistent you are, the bigger bang for your buck you're going to get. That is, the more you're going to get out of it. Now, my recommendation fundamentally, and this comes from personal experience, is that if we did this as a daily practice, we would have a significant cornerstone of our foundation to well-being, mental and physical well-being sorted. Yes, exercise is absolutely important, but it is also important that we teach the mind and the body to move into a state of calm. Right? And one way of achieving that is through what's called abdominal breathing. So the focus on the breath. Now, the pattern that I teach in that aspect is breath is in for 5 seconds, you hold it for 5 seconds, and you slowly breathe out for 5 seconds. Okay, so that's very simple. You can do that in your car. You can do that when you're sitting for an exam, for those of you who are currently either finishing off your school year or you're at university. So you can do it pretty well anywhere, anytime, and in any context. All right, so it's not difficult, and it really helps to regulate your system. The second exercise that I talk about is what's called progressive muscle relaxation. So my encouragement to you is, let's go to Google. Let's look up progressive muscle relaxation and see what they come up with. And there's quite a lot of stuff that comes up with that. Now, it's an exercise that's been used for, I think now close to 100 years, if not longer. And there's quite a lot of research that's been done on the effectiveness of progressive muscle relaxation, ranging from reducing just the general muscle tension that we accumulate in our body. And as I talked about in the last podcast, that, the muscles are essentially like a battery. They store tension. Okay, so when we're stressed, we get tense, then the muscles store it. Progressive muscle relaxation is a very good way of actively releasing that tension. And so it's also, connected with the breathing, a very good way to move into that, calm place that we want to generate. And so in essence, it's an exercise that's based on clenching, holding, and relaxing the muscle groups through the body. That's it. Now, you can do that for 5 minutes, you can do it for 10 minutes, you can do it for 15 minutes. If you've got a bit of a short attention span, if you do it regularly a couple of times a day, 3 minutes might do it too. Okay, so the investment of time in this is not huge, either for the breathing or the progressive muscle relaxation. So my comment about this is that I'm sure all of you, if you are really serious about creating a foundation of well-being, mental and physical well-being, you're going to find that bit of time, put it into your schedule daily, and then practice it. I mean, the effects of this are just tremendous. It improves your immune system, it reduces inflammatory processes in the body, and it calms the mind. Okay, so let me take you to that next level in terms of the mind. One of the common things that I get from people coming to see me and, wanting to get on top of things in a constructive way is when I talk about meditation, a lot of them go, oh yeah, tried that, doesn't work. Okay? So my experience when I sort of, explore that further with people is that they haven't got the foundation practices in place for them to allow to sit and settle in a quiet space where they're alone with their thoughts. Right, their thoughts keep racing, and part of that is because they're still in that sympathetic, aroused state. Right, so it's fundamentally important that you get practice the abdominal breathing and the capacity to release tension in your body so that the mind can still. Now, if you do that with practice, it's a bit like any form of exercise. Eventually, you get to the point where muscle memory takes over and you just sit and your mind begins to clear. Now, there's been all sorts of stuff written about mindfulness, and when I started as a psychologist, it wasn't actually something that a lot of us talked about. This has become a very new phenomena in a way, and part of me is really pleased with it. Part of me gets a little frustrated because, it's been overpackaged and overbranded in some respects. But be that as it may, I'm a pragmatist, and, if this gets the message across to people that we need to do this, then all the better. That's where I go. This is a fantastic thing to practice, and we should be probably doing a lot more about setting aside space to practice mindfulness. But the other part of it is that mindfulness is not just taking yourself into a quiet place, sitting, breathe, getting in touch with your breath, getting in touch with your body and allowing the mind to become clear, because you're now focusing on what is in the moment as opposed to what was or what will be, right? There are times when we can actually evoke that in different ways. I remember, when I first started surfing, it took all my attention and all my sort of, how do I do this? And, that wave's a bit scary because it's a bit bigger. And so, if someone said to me, well, was surfing a really mindful experience, the answer was probably no. I was too preoccupied with doing things in that way. But as I got better at surfing, one of the things that I discovered was that, it became therapy for me. It became the place that I went to cut off, to shut down whatever else was going on in my life. And that the only thing that I wanted to experience in the surf was my relationship with the ocean, the wave, and myself. And I'm not big on going for a surf and having a chat with everybody, and to me surfing is a very individual thing to do. It's where I'm at peace within myself in my environment, so I tend to avoid surfing with people. I tend to avoid crowds a lot, especially these days where the lineup's pretty crowded and sometimes attitudes are very poor in that space. So what I'm essentially saying, and I'm going to encourage you to do, is that mindfulness can be exercised in all sorts of different ways. As I said, I'd practice it when I'm surfing. But hey, why not use it to do things that you really find, difficult? It could be doing the dusting, the vacuum cleaning, doing the dishes. Practice to bring your mind into that place where it's not concerned with past or future, but rather that you're experiencing the moment fully. Isn't that ultimately where being alive actually occurs? The rest of it fundamentally is some form of fantasy, some sort of story that we've created for ourselves, often at the encouragement of others. What are you doing tomorrow? I don't know. Now that doesn't mean we don't plan. That's let's not take this to the extreme. But what it is that we need to do is we need to be much, much more, present in the moment. And fundamentally, that tradition came through from Buddhism, Sufi teachings. So there's been a tradition in philosophy, especially as well as in certain religious practices, where mindfulness was, in essence, a very strong part of it. And so when I'm talking about mindfulness, I'm really talking about our capacity to be fully present and fully engaged in the moment with whatever we're doing at that time. It's free from judgments, critical reflection, and we're aware of our thoughts, but we're not buying into them. Same with our feelings. We're not actually engaging with those. We're aware of them, but we're not overly engaged. Now, as you might pick up, is that this fundamentally runs across many things that we do in our culture and a lot of things that are encouraged. I remember during the 1980s when the movement towards multitasking became a fad, basically, and certainly in management practices and in recruitment, people wanted to know, well, how good are you at multitasking? Well, to be honest, multitasking is a nonsense. It is actually not something that produces good results. The mind is not organised to do 5 or 6 things at the same time and juggling between the few. It's here about, if I want to get good, is I sit down and I focus on one task. When I look at people's computer screens often, they've got 50 different apps up. There's their email app, and there's the word processor and the Excel sheet. And it really is not an effective way to work. Similarly, when I'm spending time with the kids, I spend time with the kids. I don't spend time with the kids being on my iPad or my iPhone or trying to read a book or whatever, unless I'm reading the book to them. Now, that's a bit different. Okay, but fundamentally, the idea is that when I'm going to engage in something, I engage with it right here and now, and be in a very calm state to really feel and process what's going on right here and now. And so that is an important aspect, for example, in our communication with each other. The number of times that I get partners in relationships complaining about how the other person's not listening, or they never listen because they're always too busy doing something. It's, mindfulness is the foundation to truly experience our life a lot more fully. And so it becomes rewarding. So when we talk about what's mental well-being, well, part of it is to enjoy life to a greater degree. And the way that we're going to do that is by really experiencing ourselves within what we're doing right here and now, whether that's me sitting down meditating, or whether it's me going for a surf, or whether it's me doing the dusting and the vacuum cleaning, or the ironing, or playing dinosaur doctors with my granddaughter. It doesn't really matter at that point. It is about living in the present. As I said, those of you a bit critical are going to go, oh, well, you got to plan, you got to have goals. Absolutely. But they're going to be much, much more rewarding when we've established them and we can carry those out step by step and build. So fundamentally what I'd like you to do between now and the next podcast, so hopefully you've paid some attention to your sleep and the sleep quality and how long you sleep and what you do before you go to sleep. You're going to focus on some exercise, and you're also now going to focus on the foundation of a well mind. So in the next session, we'll pick up a little bit more on that. And until then, I hope this has inspired you to do some changes. And if it has, how about you pass on the message? Till next time, signing off.
Thank you for listening to Inspire Change with Gunter. Gunter Swoboda does individual and group coaching for men looking to grow. For more information on this and the global Making Good Men Great movement, check out goodmengreat.com to get into contact. If you have a topic for the show or would like to be a guest on the air, please email producers at miranda@noirtainment.com. That's Miranda, Miranda, at noirtainment, noirtainment.com. Thank you, and always keep inspiring change.